Good morning. Hi everyone. I'm Michael Harrison, and I work for the Smart Metering Program at the Department of Energy Security, based in London, and I've been working on what we call SMETER, please excuse the acronym, for about 3 years now, since the end of the test project. And essentially, we're working to develop routes to implement in-use measurement into policy and into systems, and really in pursuit of the paradigm shift that David Allenson was talking about. So I'm going to give you an update on that and showcase a bit of what we've been doing in UK. And the purpose of this, really, in part, is to invite discussions with other countries in the policy space, because we're very keen to share experiences. So start off just by sort of framing the task, and I would say that the key thing here is that we live in a digital world, and both energy data and temperature data are increasingly available from smart meters, from smart thermostats, from energy displays in the UK, and so on. And if we can substitute accurate heat loss measurement for these simplified models and assumptions, then that is a sort of complete game changer, and really something that is sort of unavoidable, that this is the world we live in, and it's very difficult to see how one can carry on using lookup tables if it's possible to measure things. And we see that there's a huge potential for innovation in structures and mechanisms and cost reductions, and this example from work by Richard Jack and others just shows sort of just one small example of the level of cost saving, the billions of pounds of cost savings that are potentially on offer here. So going forward, so this slide just outlines the sort of titles of a range of projects which we've run and are running to push in-use measurement as part of the sort of UK energy efficiency decarbonisation space. And I would say that this is a bottom-up exercise. So rather than having a sort of national strategy for in-use measurement, we're looking for applications and value wherever they can be found. And we've done some market analysis following on from the sort of development work that was supported by the original SMETER innovation competition in about 5 years ago, which developed and supported the commercial development and evaluation of in-use measurement solutions. There is now increasing variety of applications people are trying to introduce into the market, and probably the largest sort of single application of that at the moment in the UK is to measure the performance of deep retrofits, but there are many other applications which are being looked at to do with things like heat pumps and so on. And the bottom line shows just some of the areas of sort of policy applications. So there have been support for measurement within social housing programs funded by government. We are continuing to look at how in-use measurement can relate to the energy performance of building system. There was a consultation on an incentive mechanism within one of our policy instruments, the energy company obligation instrument, and that has not gone forward, but has left a legacy in terms of interest within the policy space in terms of how measurement can contribute to retrofit and low carbon heating programs. And we have this ongoing program of development work which is supporting all of this activity, which David Allenson is going to talk about some of the work of that in a moment. So, sorry, I just skipped a slide. So moving on and hopefully speeding up. What do we need to do to achieve the transformation, or what David described as a paradigm shift? And we would frame this really under these three headings, and at the moment these three steps. And at the moment we're primarily working on the first and second of these, and which we see as fundamental. And the first is about establishing in-use HTC as a robust and reliable metric that we know how to produce consistently. So it's something which, as David said, is fit for purpose. And I'll talk a bit more in detail about that. And the second is about then introducing that into the myriad policy and industry frameworks, things like, for example, industry design tools for heating systems and so on, which they are essentially the conduit we see within which measurement needs to be introduced. So we have to negotiate those. And then there is a further lens which is about consumers and data access, which I'll come on to. So I've got 3 more slides, and just talking about this first one I mentioned about establishing HTC as a consistent and reliable metric. The sort of 3 steps again for this, and David Allenson will say a bit more about the sources of the variation point in the next presentation. But essentially we're talking about dwelling characteristics, occupancy, external environment, and measurement techniques. So how do we account for those? The practical application of that. So, how do people actually, what are the routines, what are the protocols, what are the standards that people have to follow in applying these measurements in the wild? There's a sort of moving from the research to the application space. One needs to turn these things into systems and routines which people can use. And then finally, how do we demonstrate accuracy? And essentially we see that as through a combination of validation, process control, of actually controlling what happens in the home or during the measurement process, and verification. So coming on to the, sorry, I keep skipping, the introduction into policy and industry frameworks. We've been thinking about this in terms of how this might be used in the energy performance certificate system, and there's nothing I can say directly about that at this point, but watch this space. A lot of what we are trying to change is these industry frameworks that I mentioned. So how do we develop training systems, training requirements, accreditation systems, introduce measurement into the design tools used by these industry processes? So that is an area where we're actively engaged and talking, for example, to the standards body which oversees renewable installations, and they've made some changes now into how the measurement in-use measurement can contribute to the design of heating of the measurement of heat demand for heat pumps and so on. And the third area is market transformation. So the picture here at the bottom is a sort of heat as a service. This is about how do we turn low carbon heating systems into products where people know what they're going to have to pay. They have some certainty about costs. We can improve consumer protection through measurement and provide sort of products which actually can lower some of these behavioral barriers to people taking up low carbon heating systems, because they have better data on their performance, what they will actually turn out to do in practice. And then I will sort of skip over this point really because of time, but just to say that we see one of the challenges we're looking at now is how do we scale this up to understand the national picture. And this is a map of a sort of mapping suitability for heat networks. So we need this granular performance data across the entire housing stock so that we can do things like plan upgrades of electricity networks. And we're not going to be able to do that realistically by carrying out in-use measurements home by home. So we need to find ways of scaling up. And Frances Hollick, I think, is talking a bit later about how the project that she managed about we call the Greenhouse Grant SMETER project, which has made some progress in this direction. So just to conclude, we're sort of very much coming to you as policy people, but needing to learn from the Annex work, wanting to understand the developments that people have been talking about already, and carry on the exchange of ideas. But also, if you have people that you think would be worth talking to in other countries, please get in touch. Thank you very much.